the cops on me. On a mission to be champs since they let me free.
Prepare for combat, my adversaries crumble. Face it, I got a reputation for damage. Busters get ready to rumble. They lock me in a cell, have me trapped in a living hell. Though not guilty, I'm still in jail. Brother, I serve my time like a soldier. Maintain composure. My shadow boxing, a fight to the death. Busting boulders. Every boxer with a pair of gloves. Best give up love. Here's a man from the makings of a thug. A lethal weapon, mind sharp. And in my heart, there's a wish to shake the world with the flurry of my black fist. Now once a high school dropout, now I'm the $1 million champ. Who's the next to get knocked out?
What's going on, everybody? Another episode of Chief Seats Box Show. Angelo here, all by myself today. Like I told you guys, I am on vacation. So the next 2 weeks is how it's going to be. It's going to either be two individual shows or one individual show. I don't know what JP is going to do, but I got to get mine in real quick. So first things first, folks, on Twitter, Cheap Seats Box, iTunes, rate, review. You will be the next unofficial sponsor, people. Like I've been saying, it's just more important than ever just because iTunes has shortened up their results. You know, it's only 4 or 8 deep now, you know, and it's the top 8. So people, like I said, people are going to have to search for you, and we just kind of want to avoid that. So if you guys could, please go ahead and do that. I would really, really appreciate it. Welcome to all the listeners. You know how it is. And the Zoom listener, old school, oldie but goodie. All right. Hey, this weekend, man, there wasn't a lot of action. There wasn't a ton of action going on. And the week before, we had statement performances by 2 young fighters. Jose Ramirez get a second-round stoppage. Mike Reed and Josh Taylor in Scotland gets a 9th-round stoppage or 10th-round stoppage of Miguel Vasquez. Those were big statement fights for young fighters. This past weekend, we have 2 fighters working their way back from their first defeats. Julian Williams gets a wide unanimous decision that really wasn't a wide unanimous decision. There's not a lot to take from this, man, other than maybe J Rock isn't the guy we thought he was. Yes, he was fighting Ishe Smith. Yes, Ishe is a good veteran, a former champion, not a world beater, not a big puncher, but a good test. Well, the test was, I think, in this way, Julian barely got a passing grade. You didn't come out of this fight feeling any better for him, you know. And you know, after the fight with Jamal Charlo, you heard a lot of, you know, there was a lot of insinuation that Charlo might be on the juice. And maybe, just maybe, by looking at what was going on and how J Rock looked, maybe J Rock's just not that good. Maybe it wasn't that he was on the juice. Maybe he's just that much better than Williams. Look, Ishe Smith is coming off, what was it, a 15-month layoff. He's 39 years old. He's been well past it for a while now. And for him to push J Rock to, you know, this was a closer fight than what the scorecards had. The scorecards had it like 4 or 5 points. This was a 1-2 point fight. There are even people saying that they thought Williams lost the fight. And you can't even really chalk it up to a long layoff because he fought earlier this year, so it wasn't that long of a layoff. It's really hard to come out from this fight and go, yeah, J Rock is back to where we thought he was. He's back in title contention, and he's really not. And when I was talking about if he won this fight and he goes ahead and calls out a Jamal Charlo, maybe that's a fight he wants. But actually, maybe it's not a fight he wants because he fell way short of expectations, especially against an aging veteran in Ishe Smith. You know what's next for him? I don't know. I honestly don't know. He's going to have to take another fight, and it's going to have to be a step up in class. You know, it's going to have to be that right at contender status. We're going to have to see another performance against a guy at that status, because at this point, from what you've seen against Jamal Charlo and what what he could be going up against the rest of the junior welterweight champions, I don't think he could beat any of them at this point. He just hasn't. He was great against lower level competition. As the competition has went up, his performances have went down. It's not the best thing. You want to see people step up. You know, the Charlo brothers did that. Hell, Canelo's done that. Even Danny Jacobs did that. Just different fighters. When you step up in class, we want to see you step up your game as well. It shouldn't just be them stepping up their game to give you a close fight. In the UK, you had another disappointing performance in Ireland, Belfast, to be specific. It was the return of Carl Frampton facing Horatio Garcia in another fight that underwhelmed. This was supposed to be, let's get back into it. And in the first 4 rounds, it kind of looked like that. Like, oh yeah, Frampton's back. He's looking good. Let's not forget, in the last fight that he was supposed to have, on his first fight on the comeback, he missed weight. And then his opponent slipped in the shower. Remember all that fiasco? He comes in on weight, starts off good, controlling distance, pumping a jab, hitting power punches, hitting combinations, getting in and out. He's basically fighting at the pace he wants to fight. And then something happens in the 5th round. And Garcia starts to turn that fight around. He's getting to him. He's hitting him pretty easily. And I think that was the biggest red flag, was how easily he was getting to Frampton. And yes, he isn't a big power puncher, but he dropped him. It may have been flash knockdown in the 7th, but he did drop him. And he continued to build that momentum all the way from the 5th to the 10th round. Did he win every single round in between then? No, but he won at least 4 rounds. And if you count the knockdown, which you have to because it was scored a knockdown, that's a 1-point fight. And if you think he squeaked by and got a 5th round, then it's his decision. So this was like such a huge red flag because, you heard the rumors like, oh, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be fighting and all that shit. It's almost like he already had the one foot out the door. And that was a common thing between Frampton and Williams, is how easily they got hit. How many times did Ishe Smith catch Williams with combinations? How easy it was for him to hit. And so maybe because he's that easy to hit, when a guy like Jamal Charlo, who does have power, catches him clean, he knocks him down, knocks him out. And you saw that with Frampton. Garcia put pressure on him, closed the distance. Frampton went on the back foot, was fighting, going backwards almost the whole second half of the fight. Almost like he was in survival mode. I just need to get to the 10th round. I got to get through the end of the 10th. That's it. And he fought like a guy like that. And remember, Horatio Williams, a year ago, got shut out by Jojo Diaz. And everybody's talking about, I don't know if Jojo's world level, if he's elite. But you compare those two performances, and you would think if he was just to look at those fights in a vacuum, you'd be like, maybe Frampton's the one who's not elite. And maybe he's not elite anymore. I don't know. When you start talking about retirement, you got the one foot out the door. It's just a matter of time before somebody pushes you over the edge. And it looks like that. Hey, you know what? Remember how his fight with Quigg, how Quigg kind of came back towards the end of the fight, even with the broken jaw. I tell you what, that rematch looks more and more 50-50 than ever. People who dismiss Quigg and everything, they forget how that fight ended. And a lot of times in rematches, and if they ever get to these rematches, which Frank Warren supposedly is in talks with Quigg, that's what I was kind of reading. Not really reading, but going through the Twitter and shit like that. I don't fucking read that much. Hey, by the way, if you guys haven't, go on to newageboxing.uk. I put out my first little article. I'm going to try to do that once a month overseas to give a kind of a U.S. report on things that they see and things that they don't see. My first one was on Jose Ramirez and being the biggest ticket seller in the U.S. For U.S.-based fighter, U.S.-born fighter. So you guys can. Go ahead, check that out. Go down my Twitter feed. It's just a few down there. I retweeted it. Go ahead and give it a look. I appreciate everybody who retweeted it, put it out there. I really appreciate you guys, supporting me, helping me out, man. I always appreciate that stuff. And that's why, when you guys put up your shows and stuff like that, I'm always retweeting it because, man, I think it's a common courtesy to always try to help build up the rest of the other shows. I just think that's something we should all do, because like I said, this isn't a competition. If it is, it's more friendly than I don't want anybody else to listen to your show. No, I want everybody who listens to your show to listen to mine and then some. That's how I look at it. And I'm always pushing other shows. And so when you guys do that back by retweeting the show and retweeting the article link, man, I really, truly appreciate that. So we'll get back. Let's jump back to where we were at. But, and both of those fighters are in Frampton and in Williams. Where do they go from here? And that's the thing is we don't know because it's just there's not much to pull from it other than maybe one's on the downside of his career and maybe one just was never as good as we thought he was in J Rock. So we shall see what happens from here. Was it just rust on Frampton? Did he just gas because he's struggling in weight again? I mean, he just moved up to 126. So I don't really see what the problem would be other than him not training hard enough or going into fat camp just to lose weight. On the undercard, Herwin Ancajas gets, what round was that? The 6th round stoppage of Jamie Conlon. I mean, we thought that this might be a step too far. There's a reason Conlon was, a 31-year-old prospect still. And Ancajas has kind of just inserted his name into the super flyweight division. And wouldn't you just love to see his name thrown into that super fly mix? I mean, this was a beating from start to finish. Conlon was game, but he was just nowhere near the level of Ancajas. And all that did to me was solidify super flyweight as the strongest top-heavy division. And let's be honest, most of these divisions are just top-heavy. There's not a lot of deep divisions where you think somebody at the bottom 10 could really push the number one guy in any division. It's just not like that right now. The welterweight division may be the most overrated division right now. When you talk about how deep it is, it's not. It's about 3 fighters deep, and that's it. The rest of the guys are a level below that I don't think any of them can beat any of the top 3. So if you go to the top 3, for me, it's Spence, Thurman, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to throw him in there already. I don't care. I'm going to throw in Terrence Crawford in there. It's those 3 guys and everybody else. Who would be number 4? Honestly, what would people say? Who would be number 4? Danny Garcia, really? The only reason that fight was even close is because Thurman went into retreat mode for the last few rounds. I don't think he could beat Errol Spence. I don't think he could beat Terrence Crawford. I don't even know if he could beat Sean Porter at this point. And Sean Porter, we know he's that level below. As much as I love him, he's that level below. The rest of them, Jeff Horn, and at this point, Manny Pacquiao, and if he's still going to fight, and all those other guys at 147, they're all a level below. I just don't think the welterweight division is a very deep division. The super flyweight division, however, I think is a very deep division. At 1, you got Inoue. At 2, you got Sol Rungvisai. And that could be changed. And at 3, you got Juan Francisco Estrada. At 4, you probably got Chocolatito. Still, yes, he got beat into submission. But he already had beaten Juan Francisco Estrada. He's also beaten probably your 5th best fighter in... Well, I wouldn't even say the 5th best fighter. Maybe the 6th best fighter in Carlos Cuadras. What about Ancajas at either 4? He's probably the 4th best fighter, and Chocolatito's number 5. But Chocolatito, at his best, still could beat any of those guys. Now, is he likely to? No, but I think he still has that left in him that he could beat one of those guys. Cuadras went life and death with Estrada. Estrada squeaked it out. I thought he earned the victory. But shit, that was a close-ass fight. He already beat Sol Rungvisai. So, we haven't even talked about Akal Yafai, who may be the 2nd best overall boxer in that division. He just can't compete with the power of most of those guys. I mean, there's 7 of them right there. Just right there, there's 7 fighters. That is probably the deepest division. I hope there's a Superfly 2 getting all those guys in there. I even hope that there's a World Boxing Super Series with them in there. I want the light heavyweight and I want the super flyweight. That's what I want for the divisions. Those, because they're so young, so strong, and so deep. I mean, you look at the light heavyweight division, you could go Gvozdyk and Bivol and even Kovalev and Sullivan Barrera and even a guy like Joe Smith Jr. And what about Eladio Alvarez? We know, let's be honest, we know Adonis Stevenson's not getting that. But what I'm saying is that division is also very deep, very top heavy. But and I think it's a deeper division. Like if they was to do the heavyweights, I mean, it really is 2 people, everybody else. Then maybe Joseph Parker is a step below, and then the next step is even bigger. So the heavyweight division not really that deep at this point. But it could be getting deeper with the return of Tyson Fury. Possible. So great performance by Ancajas, totally dominating Jamie Conlan. He was a game fighter, but showed that he was more of a level below, a UK level fighter, not a world level fighter. This weekend, I'll get to it. Quick announcements, right? We know that Errol Spence and Lamont Peterson are fighting on January 20th. They finally got a venue, Barclays Center. Surprise, surprise. Look, people can say whatever they want, and they'll sell the usual same exact number that they always sell. It's usually around 10-5. It's almost always around 10-5. How is it always the same no matter who's fighting? Let's be honest, people. You have to be honest with it. There has to be some manipulation of the ticket sales, whether it's freebies or whatever, discounts. It doesn't matter, because when you're bringing guys who aren't from that area, you're going to have ups and downs with the attendance, but it all seems to be about the same every single time. Let's be honest, man. Errol Spence should be he is a star in the making, but the PBC has made it, and Showtime Boxing, which is all Al Heyman basically running this stuff still, it still has made it to where Errol Spence cannot even be a draw in his own area right now. If he was to come up in Dallas, and I know he's from the Dallas area, I don't know how much he sells. The worst part, didn't Crawford fight in Dallas? I mean, shit. It's sad when Crawford's fought in his own hometown and he doesn't. I just don't understand that. We've seen with Jose Ramirez. We've seen how Wilder draws in Alabama and how Broner drew in Ohio. And we see this stuff, and yet these quote-unquote promoters outthink themselves. Terrence Crawford in Omaha. They outthink themselves and think they can make a spot like the Barclays Center a destination for all fights, and it just doesn't work like that. There has to be something that draws in the local people. You want to connect with your area, like a Jose Ramirez has done. How does a guy who, until 2 weeks ago, nobody was talking about, is the biggest ticket seller, U.S.-born fighter in going today? Because he is connected with his area where he's from. He's connected with the people. They feel invested because he's invested in them. And when you do this, when you continually fight in just random ass spots, how can anybody be invested with you? I just don't understand it. Look for him to dominate Lamont Peterson. Everybody say, oh, Lamont's a tough guy. Look, do you all remember what Lucas Matisse did to Lamont Peterson? Expect Errol Spence to do the same. This is not a close fight. I'm sorry, and I like Lamont Peterson, but this is not a close fight. Errol Spence is going to probably wipe him out in 4 to 5 rounds. That's just the truth. Hey, guess who pulled out of another fight? I know this is going to shock a lot of you guys. You're going to be like, no way, it didn't really happen. But yes, David Haye pulled out of his rematch against Tony Bellew. It's a shocker, I know, people. But this is what he does. The steroids obviously has taken its effect on him. He's a guy who is a habitual steroid user without the facts, it just looks like a guy like that who continually breaks down towards the end of his career because his joints and his tendons cannot carry all that muscle and all that weight, that unnatural muscle and weight for too long. This is what happens to these guys. They eventually break down. I mean, look what happened to a guy like Barry Bonds. He went from a fast base stealing threat to a slow prodding guy who had a lot of armor on because he had a lot of nagging injuries. When you put on that much muscle that's not natural, that's what's going to happen to you. There's just no way around it. Tyson Fury calling out Bellew. You know that shit ain't going to happen. Dillian White going to calling out Bellew for that fight. So we shall see if anything comes from that. Most likely it's going to be Dillian White getting that fight. It's pretty easy to figure out why, because of the ties. It's okay. I wasn't looking forward to that fight anyway. The first fight, underwhelmed. Look, David Haye has pulled out of so many fights. Is it really a shock to anybody anymore what he does and how he, how he's always pulling out of every fight that's big? I mean, that's just who he is. I know there's people out there that's, for whatever reason, especially in the UK, who love David Haye, but he's not worth your time and your effort to to be beloved, to take up that much of your boxing time. I mean, it's pressure boxing time, man. We can't give it to guys like that. And this week, there's not much happening. The return of Devin Alexander tonight on PBC on FS1. There's not much to take from that. I mean, the guy's been out for 2.5 years. We'll see. It's not something, especially right now, that really moves the needle. Nobody's like looking at it like, oh hell yeah, I can't wait for that fight. Sergey Kovalev, the return. Yes, that's kind of a big fight. Vyacheslav Shabransky, Chigonski they're fighting for the vacant WBO light heavyweight title. Let's see what Kovalev. If Kovalev's got a lot left, he goes through Shabransky. Shabransky's a nice fighter, but is easily beaten. You look what Sullivan Barrera did to him. He's easily beaten. He's a tough guy, but he's easily beaten. If he's got anything left, Sergey Kovalev goes through him. If he doesn't, he falls in the same line as J Rock and Carl Frampton. On the undercard, Sullivan Barrera's on there. That basically is a stay busy fight. He wins that fight. Maybe he's in line for Sergey Kovalev. Now that is a fight. That is a fight I want to see. Jason Sosa versus Yuriorkis Gamboa, the ghost of course. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, yeah, it's a nice fight, but Gamboa, man, at this point, he's just catching beatings. He doesn't have a lot left, and I mean, there's really nothing that excites me about that. That's really it. I mean, shit. Alexander Ustinov and Manuel Charr, really? There's just not much going on. I mean, it's Thanksgiving Day weekend, man. It's Thanksgiving Day week. You're not going to get a lot on the fight schedule. That's just it, man. I mean, there's really not much to really get hyped up about. I mean, even next week, will there be a show? Will there not? I don't know. I don't really want to talk Miguel Cotto, Saddam Ali. There really doesn't. And actually, the undercard actually intrigues me way more than that fight. But I had to get it in. I told you guys I'm off for 2 weeks. Me and JP aren't going to see each other at all. So there's no possibility of us doing a show together. So I had to do mine. Whether or not he does one, I have not figured out yet. Maybe I'll text him here in a little bit, figure out if he's going to get one. But you're going to get at least one each week. I appreciate all you guys continuing to retweet the show. Push that. I appreciate that. Subscribe onto YouTube. I want that to start to move up. Again, we thank you guys. Number 4. We've been number 4 on iTunes forever now because of you guys. Just keep on pushing the show. Keep on going word of mouth. We appreciate everybody who does that. Rate, review on iTunes helps keep us at the spot. So when people search boxing, they find our show. All the other shows that aren't in the top 8, people actually have to go looking for them or come across them by accident on different platforms, YouTube and what all the other ones, all the other ones, TuneIn Radio, all that good stuff. I don't know how Google Play does theirs because I don't have any Android stuff. I don't know where we're at. Last time I heard, it was a long time ago, we were like 7 on that. So we're always in the top 10 on almost every platform except YouTube, of course. So keep on doing that. It helps us stay visible. You will be the next unofficial sponsor. We always shout you out when you take time to rate and review. Thank you guys so much. Follow us on Twitter at CheapSeatsBox. Email us, cheapseatsboxing@gmail.com. Questions, comments, anything like that. I don't think there's anything else. Thank you guys. We will talk to you guys next week. And then remember, the beginning of December, we will get 4 shows in a row. And then we'll take a little bit of hiatus. We thank you guys for sticking by us through all these infrequent shows and ups and downs, short, long, together, not together. We appreciate you guys being patient with us. And remember, this is where the fighters fight and the fans commentate. And we do it just like you from the cheap seats because we ain't buying no tickets. God damn it. Peace.
Call me crazy, but no one can fake me. I'm the product of the projects. Lost and crazy. Throw your hands up, Mr. Bruno. Ride. Big Mike Tyson about to brutalize that ass tonight. No hesitation for the whole nation. I beat that ass so bad I probably violate probation. Through demonstration as I strategize information. Intent to kill, so it's real like I'm catching cases.